Hello, 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 and welcome to a very special episode of Across the Board. This is episode 25. We're doing the format a little differently tonight. We're back with another interview format, joined by a very special guest tonight. And yes, I know my ticker's out of date. I will update that later, chat. But tonight I'm joined by Sir B-Rad of Miami Nation in Photo Finish. Sir B-Rad, how are you doing tonight?
What's up, MJ? Good to be with you. I am good. You can just call me Bradley. Um, Happy to be here on this Jupe Day. We planned this out. I did not even realize it was Jupe Day, but awesome day to get together.
How was your Jupe day? How's that treated you so far?
It's good. I mean, definitely got an airdrop, a couple of them, and some wallets. I just didn't even realize that we were gonna get that, and yeah, happy to just stack that.
Love it. Love it. That's awesome. Congrats on that. I got a little bit for myself, so been playing around with that. Speaking of Jupe and tokens and all of that, this is perfect setup for a disclaimer. We're going to be talking a lot about Web3 gaming, obviously Photo Finish tonight, and anything we discuss is not financial advice. The state of the game can change at any point in time. Things can go up, down, left, right, sideways, forwards, backwards. We don't know. So any strategy, setup, discussion, state of the game, that's constantly changing. So nothing here tonight is financial advice. So, Brad, how did you get into Photo Finish?
Right. So I started off in crypto in like right when Bitcoin came out, pretty much. That's when I graduated college. That was kind of the beginning of my experience. So at first, I did not really take it seriously at all, and I um, developed into a much more serious crypto person by 2017. I and was not retired by the time it was 2017. I had spent the early years of Bitcoin and crypto just ignoring it, and subsequently got all the Bitcoins I had stolen in an exchange. It was not a hack; it was just an exchange called BTCE, and they just kind of closed up shop and took everyone's crypto, and I did not take it seriously, right? So by the time ETH was out, and I realized like, hey, this could be like life changing. Actually, I started just taking it really seriously, and got into um, just learning about crypto and everything. So I got into PFL by starting off doing play to earn stuff back in 2021 when I was like just learning what NFTs were, and there was a bunch of other play to earn platforms out there, and I was there for the mint of the stylish studs, and I did not mint any. I did not. Nah, it just there was a lot of big plans, and there was a lot of scams out there, and a lot of people that just put these big plans out there and didn't really follow through um, with everything that they had laid out. But Third Time had laid out a really extensive plan, and I just was hesitant and wasn't really sure. But I think within about 6 months, the Fine Phillies had dropped, and I was like, I think I want to get in on this. I think this could really be something for play to earn. And that's how I kind of started off, get my foot in the door with Photo Finish.
Interesting. Before we talk more about Photo Finish, what was like you said you got into crypto in college, was it?
Yeah, like right. I'm just lucky that way in that I was born at such a time that when I graduated college, or when I was like finishing up college, is right when Bitcoin was introduced. So it was kind of like my formative years,
Gotcha.
right? So I was like super aware of online digital currency by the time, even like right before Bitcoin was out. There were other attempts to make digital currency, and I was like, ah, that's kind of cool. And then Bitcoin did come out, and I within within a year or so of the October 2009 launch date of Bitcoin, I had gotten a little bit, and I just left it on that exchange that I got it on, and they gave me 10 free Bitcoins for signing up. That was like a sign up bonus at the time, and it was worth like nothing at the time, right?
Sure,
So,
sure.
uh, but anyway,
What drew
yeah.
you to like online crypto? Because I know like some people kind of knew about that, but a lot of people didn't when it was first starting up. Do you remember like how you found out about it originally?
I do. Yeah, like online digital currency. I think there was a group called the Cypherpunks, and they had been working on online digital currency for years before Bitcoin was invented. And I had always thought, yeah, if someone gets that right, like it could be like huge because the internet, I'm just lucky that way that I was born in the 80s and happened to come up seeing like, oh, the internet go from being like basically non-existent. Like didn't exist when I was a kid. And then like banks were like, oh, that'll never do anything. And the next thing you know, banks have websites and then you're doing your banking online, which was like a huge step. And so I just saw that progression in my life. And I just thought if anyone figures out how to do currency like we have in our video games, like in real life, it would be huge. And so I kind of was just following it
Oh,
to some extent. I didn't
good
really
for
take it
you.
that seriously, but
Yeah.
yeah.
That's pretty cool. That's awesome. Love that you had that mindset now because I feel like so many people go the route of like, okay, crypto, NFTs, but then they make that connection of like gaming. Like your comment there I thought was really interesting of like, oh wow, yeah, like what if the one I hear all the time is Fortnite? Like what if I owned my skins? What if I owned all of my unlocks? Or here like in EverQuest or like those old school like RPGs, like all these things I accumulated. So it's cool that you had that thought and had that thought so early. So you got kind of into it, you got excited, you were there for the mint, for the studs, the Phillies, and then you were hesitant, rightfully so, because at that time, like you said, there were so many projects that promised these grand, beautiful visions and didn't follow through. What was the tipping point for you to get into photo finish? What made you come back into it?
Right. So I'm not quick to act on anything. I'm much more quick to criticize and ask questions like why do you think this is, just be critical before I go and invest, right? And I had been I really owe it somewhat to my partner Scylla Snipin, which you may or may not know.
Yeah.
And he actually it's just like a DGen like me. Babes, we're the same age. And he had cued me into play to earn. He's like, man, this Axie Infinity and these NFTs, because I had not, I was like, NFTs are dumb. I got Bitcoin and Ethereum. I was mining Ethereum. I came from that was my progression: Bitcoin to Ethereum and Monero to Solana in 2021. Pretty much switched over almost exclusively to Solana, but I had seen the mint and the defining moment. I can't say there was one in particular. Um, it could have been like when the portals and the suites launched, and I was like, yeah, it looks like this company, this is like a real team, and they're doing big things. And I just had I'd been thinking about it just a little bit, and I had seen it on Twitter a little bit, and maybe someone made a post on Twitter that I saw about Photo Finish Game, and I went and looked back into it again, and I was like, I think there might be something there, and just slept on it, and just after thinking about it for a while, I was like, digital horse racing, own your horses. If they get this ecosystem right with the breeding and the track ownership is huge, and I just started getting into like I had purchased maybe one or two fine fillies or stylish studs, and it's like kind of addictive like once you get going, because you're like, oh, this is going to be like a racehorse someday, or it's going to build the Gen Zeros that are going to build a racehorse. So it just kind of dawned on me like that, to where it's going to be something big.
So would you say then it's that big? Because we talked about how big vision doesn't necessarily translate into big performance, but was it just the fact that you saw them deliver on these pieces that you could actually see it come more um into like the vision being realized? Is that what did it for you?
Yeah, it definitely helped. Like it was just really just sitting on it for a couple months and kind of letting it marinate and just thinking about it, and then it just came to the conclusion one day, like this could be like absolutely global, like unfathomably successful, right? And once you realize that, like there's it just like it's a light bulb, right? It's a light bulb moment. It just clicks, and you're like, all right, this could be there's something here, and I've got the chance to get in the beginning and the forefront and really like front run the masses if this thing really does take off. And I think there's a really good chance of it. And now obviously we're seeing it progressing basically perfectly.
I'm right there with you. Well, that was one of the things that really got me excited was the comprehensive vision. Because a similar situation, I've seen a lot of games kind of promise these grand visions and not deliver, or it's a proof of concept and MVP, not to be minimum viable products, not the actual MVP PFPs. And then it just
Yeah.
kind of stops, or they just have to do a lot more releases before anything else comes out. And Photo Finish, it's like, okay, they're further along in their development, and I see the scale, and they've got the width to it, the breeding, the racing, the ownership. Like, it's very comprehensive, which was really really nice. uh
There's a lot of there's a lot of games out there that we were playing that we were in guilds and syndicates with that were like Cyball and Pegaxi and Zed to some extent. We were looking at it, but there were all these other games out there that were more or less flops. Like even Axie Infinity, I'm like, how is this game so successful? Because it's not really, there's nothing there. It's just that play to earn, and then people in third world countries can basically make a living by doing this online. So just that progression and that mindset to realize if someone gets it right, it could be actually a top 10 crypto, a top 10 project in all of crypto.
yeah, absolutely. So you saw this, you got in, you got excited. Were you in day one with your partner Sniping, or was that something that happened after the fact? How did that come about?
Right. So no, it was just me, right? I was the visionary there with Miami Nation, and I was like getting into it, and like he had gotten me into some other things, and we were good friends in real life and everything since college. And we go way back, right? So um I had been building my stable, and I was like, you have got to get into this. And he was into it a little bit at first. And then like, I was like, nah, man, you need to like invest, like put some, put some of those profits from that last bull run to work. Right.
Yeah.
And, I convinced him eventually. I was like, I just went through it with him, um, and then he ended up really taking off with it and just running, and I was like, yes, this is awesome, because now both of us are doing it. And it wasn't until later because like it wasn't until beta was like almost over that we actually were like, oh, like we gotta run stables and actually like breed our horses, because until then it was just like matching traits and getting fine fillies and stylish studs, and building gen zeros. But the way it worked, at least for my stable, is almost all of the, and maybe it was bad luck, but almost everything in my stable was a cult. Uh, and I ended up going into beta and realizing, like, oh, wow, I cannot do anything with all Colts. Like they're all going to die after 25 seasons, and I will have no, they won't be able to race after. So I realized I needed to invest like way more into fillies after that. But so that's how it started with psilocybin and I, and we had gone into it um together at some point. We were like, hey, we need to probably try to figure out a strategy that'll work for the both of us.
So how did what was that strategy then? How did you pivot from that concern over the Colts?
Yeah, so I was realizing that I would have to actually like play chess here and figure out how to build a stable that would be viable for generations and forever. And it came to the conclusion that I could either pick an archetype. I decided there's that soft and firm don't really matter because it's just the weather. So I consider there to be four archetypes. Right dirt, left, right turf, left turf, and if I were to try to play all four archetypes, I could, but I would be spread very thin. Whereas if I played only one archetype, I could have plenty to do. Like there's plenty of races if you're just in one for a mere mortal, one person to run, and maybe I have an investor come in or some family member or something that has a horse along with me. But for the most part, I'm in charge of my portion of the stable, and I get all these bloodlines, right? And all these bloodlines would be able to breed to all the horses in the archetype, and then eventually the goal would be to get all the bloodlines from that archetype with some really great fillies and just mix them all in there, and to try to get all my breeding to where I could do it all in house in perpetuity, like basically forever, try to do everything in house and not really have to pay, because I will have access to everything. And maybe there will be a better horse that I could pay for, but if I have the option of paying for it, like maybe I will once or maybe not, and I don't have to, and I can still breed something and maybe get a crazy roll just in house. So that was my thinking, is to have like a silo, like a cylinder
Sure.
of like breeding, like it's just going to continue on and basically endlessly.
So
So
did
yeah,
did that start with your right turf then?
it kind of started when I bought the rank 21 fine filly. I was like, all right, I got some decent horses, and the rank 21 fine filly was on the market, and I was like, that's a lot of money. I mean, I think it was like 8 grand at the time, which was a lot, right?
Yeah.
For especially for fine fillies back then. That was like a top. It's probably like the best one. It was the best one for sale at the time. And I was like, you know what? If I'm gonna be if I'm gonna have a stable in this game and it's gonna be like a juggernaut of any type, I need like a kingpin piece. And so I ended up getting that fine filly. And I could have bred it with a one of one, and I ended up breeding it with a two trait match, rank 35 or something, stylish stud. And it's unique compared to the one of ones. It is The bloodline is out there a fairly good amount, but I've definitely got the best version of it. So once I realized that horse is a right turf horse and it's my best horse, and I've got some other really good right turf pieces, and I could sell and trade off the other great ones that I have for the just to build around right turf and just decide that that's my archetype. And it wasn't until late in beta where I decided to do that. I had been like thinking about it really until beta. I actually didn't even think about stable construction very much, or like strategy. I was just trying to get horses.
So jumping forward a little bit, you started right turf. You've built that up. You have over 2,000 races in your right turf stable. Are you managing that alone? Do you and Silo Snipe and share that? I notice now you have 3 stables. What does that breakdown look like?
Yeah, yeah. So a family member of mine that originally got in with me and back in years past, and we had um, worked together. And I hadn't really gone into my stable setup with anyone else, but basically, I decided that one person should just do an archetype, and I had basically a partner, a buddy of mine that um, I was like, dude, if I'm gonna do right turf, you should do right dirt, and then we can breed with each other's stuff for free as long as we don't race against each other. So that's our stable construction. And now I've got a family member also that does left turf, although that stable is very much in its infancy, and we'll see how that one goes. But either way, we kind of have an agreement, and that we stay in our own lane by and large. And yeah, so that's kind of how we came about to get to that point. I'm not sure if I answered your question.
Yeah, like I guess just the short version is how do you split responsibilities?
Oh, right, 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 right. So I decided, and we had been in play to earn for a long time, and in play to earn, there's two ways to do it. You can either play and earn, or you can be a part of a syndicate or manager of a syndicate or a guild that has a lot of people that are very much in a different societal class than you are for the most part, and they are going to be basically your employees, and you're going to take care of them and hire them to manage the day-to-day operations of the grind, right? And you'll have maybe 100 people working under you, um, playing your cyball or your pegaxi horses or doing whatever, and they're doing it for because I would be the owner, they would be the employees basically working, and a lot of these games had systems built up where the owner and the player were two different people, and the owner had it locked and the player could play it and then would earn a reward or whatever payment. And so I already had that mindset years ago for play to earn. And one of the first questions that many people asked about PFL, wasn't just us, was how is it going to be set up so that we can do play to earn? Like, guilds and syndicates get in, basically, gaming guilds could get in and build it up to where you could farm out the work. So we already had that set up going into it. But going into beta, I did everything. And then once we launched, like, if you just have any foresight, you pretty much realize that you're going to have a nearly unlimited number of horses in a very short order of time. And if you've got a job and a family and a life, it's going to be a lot. So at least training somebody to do some of the work, if not export all of that work of the actual racing portion to someone who knows what they're doing and has been doing it for a while, would be beneficial. So at this point, we do have two employees that work for us. Just one, I manage the Right Turf stable and own almost all of it. Soul Sniping the same for his side for Right Dirt, and we definitely have a system in place where someone else is able to manage the racing with no risk to us through some pretty creative technological yeah, setups that we've got going. And through that, they're able to race and but yet not have access to any of the 2FA stuff, right? So anything for
Nice.
2FA is retained by the owner, by myself.
Very nice. That's good to hear.
Yeah, I kind of pioneered that as we just looked into it. We were like, oh, we got to figure out how to do this. And we tried a few different things. And now we've got a system that, like, I think is rock solid.
That's awesome.
So,
That's huge.
yeah.
Safety is very important in this space. So, I mean, with all these horses now, and with you focusing on your right turf, how do you rely then solely on your employees? Are you personally doing much racing, or is it solely on them?
I did all the racing up until I realized I need to have a good racing manager. And I could still be doing the racing. It's not to that point yet. But I don't want to hand over a stable to someone who's never done it before
Right.
that is enormous and unmanageable. I want someone now. My employee already has 6 months of experience and is what I would like to think as a fairly experienced racing manager, and the stable's starting to really grow now. And we did bring on a second person. The Right Dirt stable is a lot smaller in number of racers, but we decided having a second person that knew what they were doing in order to pick up in case one of our something happens to one of the racing managers. There's someone there that understands the game and how to do it, because it's not easy. It takes a lot of time to learn how to actually be profitable racing. Even if you've got great horses, you need to race them right. You need to be sure to be in the correct races. And so I haven't raced these days in ages, because I don't want to, have any like influence my racing manager. Like, it's his
Sure.
income, it's his living, and I don't want to. I do. like suggest a little bit, but I'm not going to put any horse in a race or anything like that. But I definitely do have a good understanding of how racing works, and I did it myself all the way up until probably 5 or 6 months ago.
So that's a very, I feel like, unique approach. I'm happy to hear it's going well. I think that's pretty cool. And I think that's, some ways you're ahead of where Photo Finish is going to be, with their announcement of lending and loaning and, the different sharing. I thought that's really exciting. Um, so going back to something you said earlier about creating that funnel, that tower, um, how has that vision been realized, or at least is it starting to come together, or you had to pivot that at all? Have you done most of your breeding in house? Have you gone out? What does that look like?
So the silo is awesome. Like we were breeding PFPs for it was like or getting ready to breed the PFPs for like it felt like 2 years or something. So there was plenty of time to sit around and think about how to breed horses and like, oh, they can't inbreed for 4 generations, and all this one-on-one blood is going to be everywhere. And so I limit one-of-one blood in my stable immensely. Like it does not exist beyond the S, most times S plus levels if I want to get that one-of-one blood in there. Otherwise, it's all unique. And the silo has been awesome just as a way to think about it. um I want all this blood in house, but I wanted to have, the horses I bought were very specific to get the good, um great tickets, fillies and also colts. So I've got colts and fillies of Gen Zero that I can breed with that can also make me money. And I've bred a lot in house, but I've bred way more, with my spreadsheet, which is a spreadsheet that anyone that is serious about the game should have if you're trying to build a stable like I am, where it's hopefully going to be like, um, just a monstrous stable. I've got every bloodline in my archetype labeled out with I don't know if how many trait matches. I don't think that, no. It's just every bloodline and how many prefs and how much, um yeah, just the stars and the stats and everything is laid out, and how much boost it is, like total boost on the Gen Zeros, and this is just for Gen Zeros.
Sure.
And it's got, prefs and stats and boosts, everything is on there. And then everything was taken off that is already in my stable. Like, so if I've got a filly with that Siler stud bloodline, then it doesn't exist on my spreadsheet.
Gotcha.
And anything that is a duplicate, right, I will take the best one. If there's an A plus with 26 boost and 9 of 9 prefs, that's going to be, and every other one with that bloodline is a lower level. I took all those out. So now when I go to breed, I just look at my spreadsheet and say, have I bred with, and those are all the bloodlines I want in
Mhm.
my stable, and I don't have. And they're all unique. So I can hit any of those colts on there and it will work with my stable because they don't exist in my stable yet. So really the goal of the Gen Zeros, yeah, I can hit my colts if I need to, if I'm out of cash. But for the most part, I want to go out and hit every other horse bloodline and see which horses breed up really well. Like, they just get a really good roll. Some of those alleles, that article on alleles, I don't know if you've read it, but
Yeah.
it basically is the genes of the horses. And you're not going to find out if your horse has good alleles with another horse unless you try it and breed them. So I'm breeding all my fillies, which I have great fillies, to all the colts out there that I think are relevant at the Gen Zero level, and just building it out to have in maybe 5 generations being able to be just in house
Mhm.
after the Gen Zeros fall off, which is going to be not until Generation 5, which it's a long time from now. But it's likely I'll run out of cash before then, but
Just
we'll see.
becomes so massive at that point.
Yeah, it's it's a lot, man. You just breed, I got like 40 right now. I just bred 40, and I can do 30 of them at the A level or A plus, and it doesn't cost that much. But then when you start trying to breed with S minuses and S's, a lot of people got those prices like floored, like super cheap, but it's not. I charge a lot for mine because it's unique and it's at the top level, and I certainly know that people are going to need it. And if you don't think you need it, you'll find out later once I've improved on that bloodline, and the price of the next horse is orders of magnitudes higher than those Gen Zeros.
So it sounds like you have a slight concern on money in terms of breeding as you scale up, rightfully so, because you're growing at just an exponential rate. It looks like you're doing a lot of Gen Zero breeding. Are you? You also seem very, key on holding on to very specific bloodlines, which I think is really smart. Are you selling many of your offspring? Are you trying to hold on to all of them?
Yeah, like that's a great question. The Colts just get retired and studded out. Like I don't, they get raced. I
Mhm.
hadn't. That's the other thing. Everyone was like retiring their Colts, studding them out, making a bunch of money, like whatever. And they were all like flooring them all, like minimum price, whatever. I raced all mine until they were basically not viable on the racetrack. I was 6 years old or whatever, and maybe longer. Not sure exactly. I kind of have a relationship now with my racing manager where we look into, hey, is this horse done now? Send me a list of horses that you don't think are profitable. And so making a profit on the racetrack is his job, and my job is breeding. And man, 1 week a month is it's a busy job. It's a hard job, and it's very important. But we work together to decide which horses kind of get retired. So once I started retiring, which wasn't until late in the game, I had been spending a lot of money breeding because I only bred what I thought were like the best horses, right? I wasn't going to take my Ferrari of a fine filly or of a filly Gen Zero mare and breed it with a dud or a donkey. Like, no, I bred with the best ones that I could in the game, for better or for worse. Maybe I didn't hit the best alleles on all those breeds, but I definitely didn't start retiring until later in the game. And then recently, as of last season, I actually had a wave like, okay, we need to retire a wave of horses. And I put them out there. And now I think it's going to get a little better for me having income makers, to have just my vision is to have a army of studs all across my archetype that people are going to um, be able to breed with at all times. So that is an income stream, and so far I've been able to pretty much keep up with the cost of breeding, but it's gonna get, yeah, it's exponential. And we did 40 this month, and you can easily spend a ton of money. I'm very lucky that I have a lot of bloodlines in house, that I got some really great colts in house. Um, so I think that's pretty much what I do for breeding as far as in-house and income. I think it could be an issue, but I hope to break even with what I own and what I need to um, breed out and purchase on covers.
I like that. I like how you're, again, very comprehensive in the way that you're thinking that out in terms of the influx, outflux, the money moving in between, and trying to keep it all balanced while racing against the clock with that week breeding window. Um, it's it's a lot. It can definitely be a lot. Um,
Yeah.
the eh, have you done any? You mentioned bloodlines getting colts. For a while there on the market, and I haven't been as active lately at checking it, but there were some, I'll say, nicer, retired, older Gen Zero Colts on the market for relatively comparatively cheap prices. Did you take advantage of that at all? Did you look into that at all?
I messaged Still Sniping today. I'm like, I should not even get on the marketplace. It's an issue. Every time I go on the marketplace, I'm like tempted, but I've already got a stable. It's like it's growing so much. I didn't even retire all of my eligible fillies this season, and up until this season, I had retired and bred every single filly that was able to be retired. So, with that said, I think I'm not really trying to build up and buy anymore. But I do have a horse, and I tweeted that our Twitter tweeted this out. There was a horse on my spreadsheet, and I was like, all right, I want to breed that horse. And I went to breed it, and it wasn't on the market. And I was like, man, what's the deal?
Yeah.
So I went on I thought maybe it's for sale, I guess. So I went on the market, and sure enough, Gen Zero for the price of like one cover. So I just bought it and bred it. I put it on the market for the price that I think it was worth, and bred it and tweeted about it. But I really try not to like get any more of these Gen Zero um, Colts. I mean, I guess if they're cheap enough, maybe it makes sense if they are for sale. But that's the only one I've seen that was for sale
Yeah.
in my archetype. Not that I've really looked. I pretty much just go to the. I expect everyone to just put them up for stud for what they think they're worth, and then move on
Sure.
and build new and have that as an income stream. It's going to be available until they're 25 seasons old. So, I think of it as a great stream of income for any stable manager.
How is your breeding turned into improved racing? I guess I'm not trying to ask for any trade secrets here, and feel free to pass on this, but are there any kind of key things you look for or you like?
No, I'm happy to share. With the Gen Zeros, like mostly at this point, I just try to breed my fillies up with better colts for the most part and try to improve on them, right? That's the name of the game. There's nothing I do in particular because right now I have my spreadsheet and I know what bloodlines I need, and there are a lot of them, but I have a lot of fillies, so I'm just smashing all these diverse bloodlines, hoping for the best, um, and I just continue to do that. So with me breeding is more like trying to diversify and get to where I'll be able to breed in 5 generations in house, which means all the Gen Zeros fall off and the Gen 1s maybe start to fall off there at generation 6 or whatever. And then maybe I can do a little bit of breeding in house, but it's going to take a long time of breeding every unique Gen 0 and Gen 1 bloodline that's out there for a long time to get to the point where you could breed very much in house, because you got to think, if I bred my whole stable with one horse in house, I just reset the clock because I won't be able to breed in house for my entire stable for 4 more generations minimum, probably 5. So you can't do that. You can breed maybe one in house with this, one in house with that, one in house with this, and you can do it, but you can't do them all to the same horse.
Yeah, because then that would overlap, and then I feel like you'd inbreed pretty quickly.
Yeah, you'd run into a problem. So you have to stay diverse forever. You can't be just smashing the same horse, like your whole stable with one horse. You can, but then you're going to be either breeding outside of the house or purchasing colts to breed your whole stable with forever. And this way, I would have a big enough stable that I would have my choice. Eventually, I'll have my choice of any horse in my stable that I want to breed, and they'll probably all be on the market. So I'll be just breeding them for whatever the third time fee is to breed um, with a horse that you own. And I'll get a great selection of horses to choose from. So I should get not only the advantage of getting income from other people breeding with my horses, but I'll be able to breed with them for cheap.
The word that comes to mind hearing you talking about this is completionist. Um, and just like you check in like all the boxes, like you want all those bloodlines, you want to get them all together, and you've got it. And then you've got so many different angles and ways you can play it and overlap, and I like that. I hear so many people talk about, oh, I'm concerned about breeding fast, breeding slow, breeding wide, breeding up, and all these concerns about, oh no, I'm running into one of one, where then I hear you talk about this strategy and it's just like, oh, I'm gonna have it all, so like I'll be covered, or at least that seems to be the goal.
It's definitely the goal, right? Anyone that like has any foresight at all, you realize like, oh, you can't breed. Each horse has four generations within it that you have to look at for inbreeding. So that would be two parents, four grandparents, eight. So it comes out to 40. There's 40 horses
Yeah.
in each horse that you're looking at. So, or each horse that's in the game. So you're going to have to work. Inbreeding from the jump has been something that has been a major concern, and yeah, I mean, running into one-on-one blood everywhere is a major problem. And if honestly, any common bloodline, I know horses in my archetype because it's what I do that are just everywhere, and I don't want those bloodlines in my stable yet because they're they're there's many reasons. It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you make your bloodline cheap and you sell it cheap, it becomes worth less because it becomes so common that everyone, I guess everyone already has it, and nobody is able to breed with it in the future because it already exists in one of the grandparents or great grandparents or great great grandparents,
Mhm.
and maybe they don't want to inbreed. Um, Whereas if you have a more rare bloodline, either probably because you kept the price higher and it just exists less, you will be able to breed your unique stuff that is rare. And someone's going to breed all those common bloodlines and get some spectacular horse at some point. Even the one of one, someone's going to get a horse that's just the next, like, it's the bomb. And you want to have that horse sitting there on the sidelines, like, all right, this horse has every one of those common bloodlines in it, and I'm gonna smash it, with a couple of my best ones or one of my best horses, and just get all that blood in there. And hopefully, it's a couple generations deep, so I don't have to worry about it, being in there forever. But that's kind of my thinking as far as like those common bloodlines versus unique bloodlines and how you have to manage that. And I will say, after we get through generation 5 and the gen zeros fall off and the gen 1s fall off and gen 2s fall off, it's going to get way easier because we're not going to be limited with the finite pool of gen zeros that we
Right.
started with. We're going to have a much bigger pool of gen 1s, an even bigger pool of gen 2s. And once we get several generations in, inbreeding is not going to be the biggest deal ever. But until then, a lot of these, I mean, S's and everything that have all this one-on-one blood in 'em, especially at lower than the S level, are going to have like generation 3 and 4. They're going to be looking like there's nothing you can breed with, unless you breed down a bunch,
Yeah.
which or off pref, which either one of them, I would probably rather breed down and just hope for the best than breed off pref because those prefs are, I don't see a whole lot of success without having high prefs on the
I am
racetrack.
very much a high pref guy myself. Absolutely right there with you. I've run numbers on it, looked at, not to say that you can't, but just again, broad strokes, high level looking at it. Prefs seem to help even when you're racing off pref. Um, I would rather have high than not.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
all right, so we've talked about a lot tonight. Um, if you were to start over, looking back at your journey, what would you do differently, if anything?
Absolutely. Absolutely, man. That's hindsight's 2020.
Yeah.
Uh with PFL, obviously I would have minted, I would have big brained it and just unloaded the clip on the stylish studs mint. Like, I think anyone here would have,
Yeah.
but really, there's not too much I would have done differently other than just ape in a little sooner,
Sure.
right? I think I've got a tweet out there. It was pinned on my Twitter for a long time. It said it was like January of 2022, right after. I mean, Stylish does route, and I had made the call, and it said to jump into this game like ape in, and it said you might as well ape into something at photo finish game, and that was my pinned tweet for a while. Not that my
Yeah.
Twitter is like I've not really focused on having a lot of followers or anything on my personal Twitter ever, but I did have that on there for for quite a while, and I, there's not too much else I would have done differently. Just a couple of things in hindsight. Getting a lot more PFPs would have been cool because I never really. Most of my PFPs are just from breeding, so I did have a lot of them. I think I'm at like, I think I settled around 69. That's a good
Nice.
number. Uh, and I'm somewhere around there. But I
Chat. Let's
never
get some
like
nices
just,
in chat for 69.
yeah. So there's definitely an opportunity there that I missed into just like hamming into a bunch of PFPs. I knew Crown was going to be good, but I knew I had my stash. I figured there's three main sources of income in photo finish. You got your studs that you've got for breeding. You've got your track ownership and really racing. And those
Mhm.
are the three main forms of streams of income that you can develop in the game. And I think they're all very viable, and every manager should be focused, like laser focused on all three of those and improving them and locking them in.
So you set me up perfectly there. So if someone's looking to get into photo finish, what would you, again, not financial advice, not going to hold you to anything, but what would you recommend, at least strategically, how they approach getting into this? Well, what would some first steps be for someone that maybe doesn't have a ton of money? They can't just, throw bags at this, but, someone who's got moderate, smaller size, what kind of strategies or approach based off what you know would you recommend for them?
I would say it definitely depends on your goal. Like, do you want to have a monster stable, or do you just want to have fun, or if you want to take it seriously? Either way, I would say getting some amount of crown and getting it staked to start that stream of income, because it is substantial. And maybe just take your staking earnings each month and buy more crown. And if you can get more cash to put into crown each month, maybe do that. I would say that would be because that's the most passive, like you own part of the track.
Mhm.
It's still early, no matter what anyone says. It's very early in this ecosystem, and it could pay dividends, right? So that's your
Yeah.
one stream of income. Um, your second and third streams of income are racing and having Colts. At this point, getting a bunch of Gen Zero Colts like I have is not really um, a thing that you could do, but you could pick up some really great Gen Ones. There are some Gen Zeros out there actually, but I don't know that it's what you want to do at this point. I would probably, after you get past the trainer horse phase, if you really want to race for money, um, getting a filly that can race from a good bloodline doesn't have to be an S, doesn't have to be an S minus. A lot of my stable is A's and B's, and they're all unique and they're all very, very good bloodlines, 26 boosts and four trait matches and all that. So there's some great bloodlines at the lower levels. In fact, I would say the best bloodlines as far as the amount of boosts and the amount of trait matches are at the B and A minus and A level. Because once you get into that A plus level and S minus level and S level for the unique horses, there's not many trait matched horses. There's not many high boost horses. They're all like low. They got most of them have a lower boost. So if you want to look at the most complete um, horses, I think if you look at the parents, the Gen Zero parents, and you find a Gen 1 that has a really great colt that isn't just being floored out to the world, maybe get one that's not super common. A lot of the lower level ones are not common. I've been breeding them, but a lot of people have just been, trying to breed up and get a great racehorse, which is fine. But find something at that lower level that's a really great foundation type of a filly, and your colts are going to come to you once you breed it, and you're going to have to pay to breed it. After you race it through, maybe try to win some money and breed it, and you're going to get some colts. You're going to want to race those colts and try to do well. If you have to understand aging and peak age, so your horse right when it's first born at 2 years old, it's not fully developed, very likely, and it's going to take some time to hit its peak age, and that's the part of the game. So your colt game will come, but I would not recommend selling your colts. I'd recommend putting them up on the stud market and waiting for someone like me or all these other big brains out there that want to find a nice, unique Gen 1 to breed with, and just get that army of colts established that are in the stud barn, and that they will be there until they pass away at 25 season. I mean, that's 2 full years from now if it's born today. So get that established, get your racing income established, and then finally, once you start getting all these colts, you can set those in the stud barn, and just watch them as they get that income stream going. It will be pretty light probably, um, with the Gen ones and stuff going forward. I'm not sure, but the population is just going to keep exploding. So getting it going, even if you don't get any breeds for a couple seasons, like, don't get discouraged. Keep building horses. You might build one, and one of them's going to have something crazy good about it, or be like the best of that bloodline, and then bam, you've got something that everyone's going to want, and you're going to be happy to have it in your stable. That would be my advice
I,
for someone
I
coming
like
in.
it. I like it. Kind of a slow foundational flywheel approach. Get to know the game. Like how you said, start with crown, get to know the game with your trainer, and then slowly kind of reinvest, re-roll in, and just incrementally get your way in. Very, very nice. Very nice. And again, not financial advice, just talking strategy here, people. So very cool. We're approaching an hour now. Is there anything else that you wanted to discuss, bring up tonight? We've got kind of through our big question list. Anything else top of mind for you right now?
You know, I don't have too much else that I want to go over tonight. I'm happy to take some questions if we've got any good questions from anyone out there. I would say I'm one of the more experienced people in the community. Just being here since the mint, really. A lot of the people that are in the community now came within the past 12 months. And I just hope to see this community continue to blow up into 2024, and to have most of the people in the community here in 2024 as we, just grow exponentially. And so I'm happy to take any questions that anyone's got, or if you have any other questions for me.
Well, no questions from chat. I just kind of checked through the different channels.
Cool, cool.
Tonight's episode, I want to just mention, I've got it in the ticker in the bottom. I threw it in chat a few times tonight, but is JG Web 3. So please go give him a follow on Twitter. Just the letter J, letter G, and then Web 3. He puts on a awesome series called Stable Stars. It's 16 episodes now. So if you like tonight's episode of Cross the Board, you are going to love his Stable Stars spaces on X. 16 episodes of stable knowledge and opinions. So if you like learning about this, you are going to love his series. Brad, where can people find you and Miami Nation online?
Yeah, so check out our Twitter. We're at Miami Nation PFL. We're on Twitch at Miami Nation PFL. And that's where we do occasional streams. And we're obviously on Twitter all the time. We actually, for whatever reason, I think we've got one of the largest Twitter followings in PFL at this point, but we do get into all kinds of sports stuff. Like the horse Twitter is not the biggest niche in Twitter, but we do just get into a lot of different stuff about sports, and uh, so we've got all kinds of people following our stable, but that's what it's all about, just building the community and having a good time and looking at uh, any sort of sports that people are into, commenting and following people. Horse racing is awesome, but there's a lot of other sports and things that we find interesting and like to have interaction with a lot of diverse people in our Twitter community. So come join us.
That's great. I just dropped both your Twitter profile as well as the Miami Nation PFL Twitter profile in chat on Twitch. So definitely give both of those a follow along with JG Web3. I'm going to drop his info in one more time for you all. All right. Well, that's going to wrap everything up for tonight. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Across the Board. 25 episodes in. Here's to another 25 more. Thank you so much for joining me tonight, Brad. Wish you, Silo Sniping, Miami Nation. I can't say that tonight. All the best and good luck. And chat, thank you for tuning in tonight. And I will see you next Wednesday for another.